Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my pleasure and honor to welcome you all to the London School Model United Nations, or better known as LSMUN 2020. My name is Adi Yuwono, and I'll be guiding you throughout today's opening ceremony. First of all, a warm greeting to Mr. Taufan Teguh Akbari, PhD, Vice Rector 3 of LSPR Communication and Business Institute, Mrs. Patricia Vicky Sihombing, MSE, Head of Student Activities, LSPR Communication and Business Institute, Ms. Cherry Mawuntu, MECOM, Club Coordinator of Youth Diplomacy Community, Dylan Huber, Vice President of LSPR Student League, Pinehas Danu Arvito, President of Youth Diplomacy Community, and Rosintia Hadinata, Secretary General of LSMUN 2020. I would also like to give a warm greetings to the sponsors of LSMUN 2020. They are ANT Production, Holy Project, and our media partner, LSPRTV. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, before we begin, I would kindly like to ask everyone to please stand up for the Indonesian National Anthem and LSPR hymn. I would like to remind you that during this activity, please make sure that your cameras are turned on and that your microphones are muted. Thank you. distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. The annual London School Model United Nations 2020 is catered to encourage the youth to voice their brilliant ideas as delegates through a simulation of a United Nations conference. This year's grand theme of LSMUN 2020 is World Crisis, Race Against Time. As we all understand, we are currently living under a global crisis. The two main points of the crisis are the coronavirus pandemic and sustaining natural, renewable energy. These are two significant issues that if we do not foster cooperation, then we will suffer harsh consequences for it. And by that, London School Model United Nations 2020 will have two councils. Firstly, there is the United Nations Environmental Program Council. This council will cover the topic of geographical dilemma of natural renewable energy. And secondly, there is the World Health Program Council. My apologies, World Health Organization Council. This council will cover the topic of coronavirus as a spiral pandemic fear and global threat. The London School Model United Nations realized that these two councils are crucial, reflecting at the current situation of this world. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to listen to the opening speech delivered by the Secretary General of LSMUN 2020, Rosintia Handinata. Please give her a warm round of applause.
Welcome, good morning, and greetings to the Vice Rector 3 of LSPR Communication and Business Institute, Mr. Taufan Teguh H. Akbari, PhD. Head of Student Activity, Mrs. Patricia Vicky Sihombing, Club Coordinator for Community Category, Cherry Mauntu. Respective speakers, Mrs. Sidrotu Naim as a speaker for WHO Council from United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization National Expert. Mr. Satya Hanggayuda Widya Putra as a speaker for United Nations Environmental Program from Special Task Force for Upstream Oil and Gas Business. Ms. Alia Nurayu Laksono as the representative of Ministry of Youth and Sport of Republic of Indonesia. And once again, greeting to the Honorable Chair and outstanding delegates. At the last quarter of 2019, I was given the honor to be the Secretary General of LSMUN 2020. And LSPR YDC has been a great place for me to work with personally. With the collective effort, the Secretariat has planned a beautiful and outstanding creation. And the progress was as smooth as a toll road. But everything has turned into a long story when a pandemic reaching the country. 1,000 lives has gone and threatened the living. Hundreds of plan has been cancelled, and the original plan of LSMUN 2020 aren't slipped out from it. But in the name of collective effort, here we are, standing together to work, to create, and to reach the plan that we has been set. It's indeed that we don't have a choice when it comes to a pandemic, but to stand together and to stay resilient. However, in the last 100 years, we do have choices, but we choose to put our world to a destruction and crisis, alongside with many insecurities. Human security, climate security, health security, economic security, name any kind of security, and human did nothing but to create it. It needs more than a century to clean up the mess that we have made in the past, and still human did not start it. Delegates, we are indeed in the race against time. We are in the choice to choose whether to raise or to leave nothing for our next generation. But the concept of our next generation is still in question. The race that we are in is still a choice. The energy that we can use is still a choice. We are in this together. We do have choices. We are indeed a voice, and we love to voice our mind. Many kind of equality has been voiced out. To have equal human rights, for gender equality, to eradicate poverty, to end discrimination. But the equality, any equality, won't matter when we are all equally extinct. Michael Jackson is indeed right when he said that we are the world and we are the children. But are we the one who's gonna make a brighter days? And are the choices that we made be the one that save our own lives? Welcome to LSMUN 2020. As the Secretary General, on behalf of the Secretariat, we wish you the best of luck to learn and grow, to giving out the best impact for one's community later in the future. In the collective effort, we trust.
As Rosintia Hadinata points out, in a collective effort, we trust. Thank you, Rosintia Hadinata, for the wonderful opening speech. Now, we are going to listen to another opening speech, this time delivered by the president of LSPR Youth Diplomacy Community, Pinehas Danu Arvito. To Pinehas Danu Arvito, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Adi Yuwono, and good morning, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to Mr. Taufan Teguh Akbari, PhD, Vice Rector 3 of LSPR Communication and Business Institute. Also, I would like to welcome Mrs. Patricia Fikisi Hombing, MSc, Head of Student Activities of LSPR Communication and Business Institute. And also to Ms. Cherry Mawuntu, MECOM, Club Coordinator of LSPR Youth Diplomacy Community, and also to Dylan Huber, Vice President of LSPR Student League. And also I would like to thank to all the speakers today. Thank you so much for your time to be with us today. And right now, I would like to welcome to all delegates of LSMUN 2020. For this opportunity, I would like to begin with a little story. Around months ago, one of my colleagues in LSPR YDC asked me a question. Vito, are we going to continue to do the LSMUN 2020 in the middle of this pandemic? And I was suddenly silent. And I thought to myself, oh my God, that's my big dream. But it would be really hard for us to do it in this kind of situation. Can we do it? And suddenly another Vito came. And he said to me, wait, before you go too far questioning yourself, are you sure that's your big dream? Don't you remember how bad do you want it? Would you remove it from your story? And I said, no way. Yes, I admit that this kind of situation is really hard for my ability. But my mama told me, we cannot expect that the situation could adjust our ability, because we need to force our ability to adjust the situation. And my answer, gentlemen, we are the one who write the script for our own story. And there are LSMUN 2020 could be the place for you to make you proud of you. and you will be able to be someone, you'll be able to be a few of many people who can stand up when the situations are tough, or maybe when things are going against you. But remember, when you can do it, that's when your story will be happen. That's when your story will be born, your valuable story, your story of success. Thank you so much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Pinehas Danu Arvito. What an inspiring story behind this LSMUN 2020. Now, I would like to welcome Dylan Huber. He is the Vice President of LSPR Student League. Without further ado, to Dylan Huber, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, MC. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Namo Buddhaya, Shalom, Om Swastiastu, and thank you for everyone who has been part of LSMUN for the year 2020. To Mr. Taufan Tegu Akbari, PhD, Miss Patricia Vic Hombing, MSc, Miss Jerry Mawuntu, MECom, the President of YDC and its team, the Secretary General and the Secretariat of LSMUN 2020. Warm greetings to you. Thank you for being part of an LSMUN journey, and more importantly, for the Youth Diplomacy Community's activity for the year 2020. This year's Youth Diplomacy Community has done a lot in contributing to the well-being, the growth of young diplomats who wish to be part of a greater thing in today's world. The youth have always aimed to make a difference, to be part of something bigger, and to be part of a movement that for all of us, we know is the future. And we have always hoped that the future will be bright. We have always hoped that the future will be something that we can always adhere to, we can always look forward to, and we can always hang on to. The youth are a part of a greater vision, a vision whereby we live in a harmonious world with no fear, without the discrimination between black and white, without a doubt between war and peace, and of course, a win against the race against time. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow delegates, it takes courage, it takes vigor, and it takes amounts of empathy to be part of a greater movement. LSMUN 2020 has been able to create that platform whereby young delegates, young students, and young minds such as yourselves have that courage, have that vigor, and have that empathy. Topics and motions are going to be raised about what is right, what is wrong, what should be discussed and what should not be discussed. Choices are made. The youth can only make a difference by making decisions, not by following instructions. And this is why LSMUN is giving you that time to make a decision. Use it wisely. Raise your placard if you have something to say. Use your voice. Because in this world, I personally believe that the only way we can move forward is by having discussions. If we're able to sit down, speak face to face, and understand each other as human beings, then only then can we understand and move on. The problem with the world today is that we all want to speak back, but not listen. We all want to talk over each other, but not sit down and understand who we are as human beings. And therefore, with LSMUN delegates, what is expected is that you give your full attention. Give your full attention, listen, and speak. For you are the future diplomats, and you are the future presidents and kings and queens of today's day and age. It is of utmost gratitude to the Secretary General and the Secretariat for putting together such a unique piece whereby people and young international relations students and actually students from all over Indonesia can come and participate. Can come and participate. To the chairs, let us hope that resolutions are soundly passed. To the delegates, make sure that you give in all you can ideas that are fruitful and just. To Ms. Patricia Vicky-Hombing as the head of student activities, let us hope that you are going to be proud and you can see the difference that these children, that these young adults and these change makers are making. To Mr. Taufan Teguh Akbari, you believe in leadership, and here's the platform I can tell you that in this group of LSMUN, everyone is a leader and everyone is ready to take that baton. And to the president of YDC, you're leaving soon, but this has been your legacy, and your legacy will move on. To Ms. Cherry Mauntu, you have been a part of something greater for the past few years in LSPR, and I'm sure and I hope that you can be proud of this process. Without taking much of your time, good luck to everyone. Let us hope that this conference is going to be helpful. Answer the question with diligence, answer the question with thought, and let resolutions be passed, because tomorrow is always a brighter day. Pandemic or not, we can fight through, we can discuss, and we can cooperate. The art of negotiation is interaction. So let us interact, let us speak, and let our voices be heard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dylan Huber. Moving on, I would like to now warmly welcome you, Mr. Taufan Teguh Akbari, PhD as the Vice Rector 3 of LSPR Communication and Business Institute. Ladies and gentlemen, please give Mr. Taufan Teguh Akbari a warm round of applause.
You are having a great week. And I want to say good morning as well to Mrs. Patricia Vicky-Hombing, MSE, Club Coordinator for Community Category, Miss Cherry Mawuntu MECOM, and also the President of LSPR YDC, Pinehas Vito, Secretary General of LSMUN 2020, Rosentia Handinata, and Dylan Huber, and also second degree cabinet and the secretariat, honorable chairs, respective speakers, Mrs. Sidroto Naim PhD, MPA, and my good friend, Mr. Satya Hanggayuda Widya Putra, and also Miss Alia Nur Ayu Laksono, and once again to all distinguished delegates. Welcome to, again, this 2020 London School Model United Nations 2020 And as the Vice Directors 3 in LSPR representing student affairs activities, I'm delighted yet proud to support LSPR student recreations and innovation to stay active and impactful in the midst of the pandemic. And this year, the third annual event of LSMUN may be different than the last 2 years, as Dylan mentioned before. But still, and also the Pinehas Vito also mentioned before, but still we can see the escalation regarding the number of delegates, which means that the youth are still enthusiastic to actively contribute in MUN activities. And with this heart, a grand theme which talks about the world crisis in terms of renewable energy and the coronavirus pandemic, we do believe, I do believe, that the youth as the delegates, as the future leaders, will be able to speak up, to stand up their national interests by creating resolutions which generally covers the needs and also the interests for all nations. And ultimately, the greatest lesson that COVID-19 can teach humanity is that we are all this together. Remember this. And we do hopes that this LSMUN 2020 may bring escalation to all delegates in terms of delegates' ability to research, of course, in public speaking, debate, cooperations, critical thinking, and of course, in leadership. And during both days in LSMUN 2020, I am personally expecting to expand delegates' knowledge regarding the international issue and the international organization alongside with the formal dynamic international debate. And further, to build a network between students from all around Indonesia and cooperate to generate the best resolution for an international issue while broaden all delegates' perspectives toward international work. Technology now allows people to connect anytime, anywhere, to anyone in this world from almost any device. This is dramatically changing the way people work, facilitating 24/7 collaboration with colleagues who are dispersed across time zone, countries, and continents. Fighting the old. Not on fighting the old, but on building the new. Because I believe you are the future, we are the future. Last but not least, for all delegates, good luck and enjoy. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Mr. Taufan Teguh Akbari, thank you very much. We are now continuing our opening ceremony to the next agenda, and that is to hear our keynote speakers. Our first speaker for today's opening ceremony is Mr. Satyahanga Yuda Widyaputra, BA, Honors MSc. For a background, Mr. Satyahanga Yuda Widyaputra himself is the co-founder of IE2L, head of ESDM Rumah Milenial, and also the president of the Alumni Association of Michigan State University in Indonesia. Bear in mind, to all delegates who would like to ask questions after Mr. Satyahanga Yudaputra present, you may write your questions in the comments section in the Zoom chat box, and I will get to them later. Without further ado, to Mr. Satyahanga Yudaputra, the floor is yours.
Great. Well, thank you so much for the kind introduction, and good morning to each and every one of you, all of the undergraduate students in the London School of Public Relations. It is certainly a pleasure for me to be able to speak to all of you, particularly today, as we will be speaking about Indonesia's energy sector. Now, the overarching theme of today's event is about energy, the environment, global warming, and its negative consequences, which is climate change. And as we all know, climate change is a result of an increase in greenhouse gas emissions, GHG. And greenhouse gas emissions occur from many different sectors, including the energy sector. So today I will be focusing on Indonesia's energy sector and the role of youth in developing new and renewable energy and energy conservation in Indonesia. By the end of the day, there will be a process of regeneration. The people that are now in power in the executive branch, the legislative branch, as well as the private sector, in all of the instances, associations, organizations, will be replaced 20 to 30 years from now. And they will be replaced by millennials, by Generation Z, as well as Generation Alpha. And that includes everyone in this Zoom meeting today. I would also like to say thank you to Mr. Pinehas Vito, as well as Ms. Shantia Handinata for inviting me to come speak as a keynote speaker in today's session. It is certainly a pleasure, and I look forward to speaking and presenting about the role of energy, as well as the participation of the youth in trying to develop new and renewable energy. Now I will be sharing my screen, so then each and every one of you can have a look at my PowerPoint presentation slide. Are you able to see my PowerPoint presentation slide? I'll take that as a yes. Okay. So today I will be presenting about the role of the youth in developing new and renewable energy and energy conservation in Indonesia. My name is Satyahanga Yuda Widyaputra. I have a very long name, 3 first names and 2 last names, but for simplicity, you can all call me Hanga. I work in the Special Task Force for Upstream Oil and Gas Business Activities, SKK Migas, which is a part of the executive branch. So I am part of the Indonesian government. So we monitor, we evaluate, and regulate every existing oil and gas companies that are investing in Indonesia, be it multinational companies or local companies, such as Pertamina. And outside of that, I am also the co-founder of the Indonesian Energy and Environmental Institute, I2I, chairman of the Energy and Mineral Resources Division of Rumah Millennials, the Secretary General of the Association of LPDP Scholarship Recipients, Mata Garuda, as well as the president of the Indonesian Michigan State University MSc Alumni Association. I do have a lot on my plate, but my main focus and my main role is in SKK Migas, and I do allocate some time out of my day to focus on a few of the organizations that I'm currently involved in. A bit of a disclaimer before I start my PowerPoint presentation. So as stated before, I do work in SKK Migas, and I'm a part of the government institution, but in this presentation, I do not represent SKK Migas. As a result, all of the information in this presentation comes from my own personal perspective and not those of SKK Migas. So a little background information about myself. I was born in Jakarta, Indonesia, but I was actually raised in 5 different countries throughout my life. So I've lived in the United States, the United Kingdom, China, Vietnam, and Indonesia. And I have had the opportunity to be able to travel to more than 40 countries. Now, a lot of people think that traveling to 40 countries comprise of holiday activities, vacation, but it actually consists of a lot of the working meetings that I had to attend from the parliamentary delegation. I was involved in the parliamentary delegation from Commission 7 as well as Commission 1. So Commission 7 deals with energy, mineral resources, and research and technology, whereas Commission 1 deals with foreign affairs, intelligence, as well as defense from the legislative side of the Indonesian government. And so I was very much active, and I participated in a lot of meetings that were involved with key stakeholders from Indonesia as well as countries from abroad. I attained my master's degree from New York University, a Master of Science degree in Energy and Environmental Policy, magna cum laude, and a recipient of the Indonesian Government Scholarship Award, LPDP. I received my bachelor's degree from Michigan State University with a Bachelor of Arts degree in Economics. I was a member of the Honors College and graduated in 3 years of a 4-year degree program, as I was able to take courses from Harvard University, from the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, as well as I went to Jakarta International School. I went to JIS, where I took 2 types of curriculum, which is the International Baccalaureate as well as the Advanced Placement. And as I was able to transfer my credits, I was able to graduate in 3 years of a 4-year degree program. I can just skip this part because I have already mentioned what I'm involved in ever since I came back from the United States of America 3 years ago. Now, a bit about the energy sector in Indonesia. Now, we all know that Indonesia is still heavily reliant on fossil fuel, and so we are a fossil fuel-driven economy. However, fossil fuel 20 to 30 years ago and fossil fuel now is seen different, be it from the Indonesian government as well as the private sector. Fossil fuel is now treated as a prime mover economy. Now, for example, we can see that the government is trying to reduce the price of gas, and it is no longer a revenue generator. Now, ever since we started importing oil in 2003 to 2004, we have experienced a shortage in oil. We are currently at a surplus for gas, but that too, in the long run, will turn into a shortage. We do have an abundant amount of coal, but at the same time, we are switching to renewable energy. And so we are a fossil fuel driven economy, but since fossil fuel is depleting, it is now seen as a prime mover economy and no longer a revenue generator. Now, there are 3 legs when we talk about the upstream oil and gas sector in Indonesia. The first is that there is a Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, the Special Task Force for Upstream Oil and Gas Business Activities, as well as the oil and gas players. This is a brief overview of what the upstream sector in Indonesia looks like. So at the top, we have the policymaker, which is the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. In the middle, we have the Special Task Force for Upstream Oil and Gas Business Activities, which monitors and evaluates all of the existing oil and gas companies that are investing in Indonesia, such as Pertamina. Those are the upstream oil and gas players. Now, according to McKinsey, after more than a century of rapid growth, global primary energy demand plateaus around 2030. Now, we can see from the graph that from 1850 to 1900, we experienced the industrialization of Western economies, and a lot of the energy still use biomass. Now, go back from 1900 to 1950, there was an expansion of global and local transport, and it was dominantly fueled by coal and oil. Now, from the 1950s to the 2000s, we saw an unprecedented rise in Western living standards. And ever since then, we see China taking off. That's why we see a lot of growth, 9% growth, 10% growth coming from China. Although they plateaued, but back then in the early 2000s until 2016, there was a rapid industrialization in China. Now, from 2016, which was over 4 years ago, until 2050, which is 30 years from now, we will see a fast uptake in renewable energy in the energy mix, an increase of 14%. So we have to take into account that although globally we rely on fossil fuels, the penetration of renewable energy is set to increase from 571 million terajoules in 2016 to 650 in 2050. So that is an increase of 14%. So we can see that from the compounded annual growth rate. So what about fossil fuels? So if you look at coal and oil, the demand peaks within the next 15 years. Now the future of energy is in gas as well as renewable energy. And we see gas and renewable energy growing at a fast rate. So if you look at the share in 2035 as a percentage for renewables, it's at 25%. And in 2050, it will increase to 34%. Whereas gas is stagnant, right? At 23%, it's going to decrease by only 1% in 2050 to 22%. Whereas we see a reduction in oil as well as coal. Oil will reach its peak in 2033, the use of oil, the global primary energy demand per fuel in million terajoules. Whereas coal has already peaked in 2019. So we see a shift and a transition to renewable energy, to gas, because at the same time, gas, although it is a fossil fuel, it is seen as a clean energy in comparison to other fossil fuels. And it is seen as a transition energy from fossil fuel to renewable energy. Renewable energy generation, it actually accounts for more than 50% of power supply post 2035. And we can see a clear trend from historical fossil fuel based generation. As we can see, the share of renewables has increased, and it will increase from 18% in 2005 to 73% in 2050. Now, this is if we're talking about renewable energy as a whole, globally around the world. And as some of you may know, a transition to renewable energy will certainly decrease the amount of greenhouse gas emissions that gets emitted into the atmosphere, and it will be more sustainable. And we will promote environmental sustainability, since renewable energy can be generated at any time, at any given day, and it is produced every single day in comparison to fossil fuel, which require tens of millions of years to be able to produce. If you look at Indonesia's national energy policy in 2014, the Indonesian government wants to increase the use of renewable energy. It wants to decrease the use of oil, as well as optimize the use of gas, as well as renewable energy. Now, although coal is seen as dirty fossil fuel and it emits a lot of greenhouse gas emissions, because we still have an abundant amount of coal, the Indonesian government looks at coal as one of the primary energy mix and one of the leading energy mix. So we still have a future in coal, right, according to the Indonesian government. But we do put nuclear as the last option because of safety reasons. Now, the reason why we are switching to renewable energy is because it causes a lot of damage on the environment. Now, as university students, it is important for each and every one of you to know what are some of the losses that occur, right, that has to be incurred because of the use of fossil fuel. Like, for instance, if we look at the emissions coming from oil, it's costing us over 27 billion rupiah every single year. From the emission of coal, it's costing us 235 billion rupiah every single year. Now, when it comes to the deterioration of the quality of water, it's cost us 4.05 trillion rupiah per year. And if you look at the quality of our soil, it's cost us 385 billion rupiah per year. And so if you look at the energy sector as a whole in Indonesia, it contributes to actually 314 metric tons of CO2 equivalent, which is 37.7% of our total greenhouse gas emissions come from the energy sector. It is by far, right, the second largest greenhouse gas emitter in Indonesia, right after land use, and forestry. I mean, the gap is big. If you compare energy with waste, with agriculture, as well as the other sectors, it's a big gap. And so this is a sector that needs to be addressed and it needs to be focused on when we talk about the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, and when we talk about conventional instruction of number 22 in 2017 regarding the energy plan, which is to increase new and renewable energy to 23% in energy efficiency, right, compared to business as usual scenario as part of the energy mix. Now, we do have a national commitment which is stipulated in saying greenhouse gas emissions. Well, this is actually part of the requirement, since this has now become a law in 2016. It was ratified by the Indonesian parliament. Global temperatures does not exceed 2 degrees Celsius, and they will try to make sure that it does not increase above 1.5 degrees Celsius. Now, a lot of the activities that we have been doing is trying to reallocate the subsidy that we place on fossil fuel to new and renewable energy, as well as infrastructure. We also intend on trying to increase 23% of new and renewable energy as part of the energy mix by 2025, and converting waste to renewable energy. Now, I'm just going to go through this briefly. I'm not going to go in detail, since we do have a limit on the time. If you look at the renewable energy mix in Indonesia, it is set to increase, right, to 23%. That is part of the target by 2025 and 31% by 2050. So we do see a clear trend in transition from fossil fuel to renewable energy. Now, we do have a lot of potential when it comes to renewable energy. If we look at Indonesia's electricity demand per year, it is from 65 to 70 gigawatts. Whereas if we look at the amount of renewable energy that can be generated, it's exceeded 450 gigawatts. So if we think about the total electricity generation, as well as the reliance on fossil fuel once it comes to transportation, it can actually all be covered with new and renewable energy. We see that from water, from geothermal, from wind, from bioenergy, as well as from solar. Now, when it comes to the portion of renewable energy as part of the primary energy mix, it has increased exponentially. So we see a rise, right, from 2008 at 4.37% to 9.15% by 2019. And if we look at the target as well as how much we have actually mitigated, reduced the amount of greenhouse gas emissions, we've actually exceeded our targets, right? So how many tons of CO2 we've reduced has exceeded the targets. If you look at from 2015, 2016, 17, and 18, although we were short on target in 2 of the 4 years that are on this graph, but we have exceeded in 2015 as well as 2018. So we see a reduction in the emission from the energy sector as large as 54.8 million tons of CO2 equivalent. Now we see that increasing exponentially from 2010 until 2018. And of course, with the COVID-19, a lot of renewable energy developments have been delayed because of financing, demand decreasing, delay, as well as tariffs. Now, this is my last message that I want in this PowerPoint presentation that I want to convey to each and every one of you. I understand that the people that are in this audience are university students, right, undergraduate students from the London School of Public Relations. So the question becomes, what is the role of the youth? So what can the youth do in order to ensure that we are able to switch to renewable energy? Now, we're not policymakers. We are also not large conglomerates or investors, right? We're just university students. Now, we have to take into account that millennials and Generation Z dominate Indonesia's demographics. And a lot of youth activities today are very close to the speed of information and technological developments. So some of the many ways that the youth can do, the people that are our age can do, is one, we can be involved in energy or environmental related organizations, associations, or institutions. That way we're able to mingle, we're able to network, expand our knowledge with regards to energy as well as the environment. We can also work on our thesis with regards to energy and the environment. Now that research paper can certainly be used as a policy advocacy. Or if we have already graduated, we can work in a company that is engaged in the energy or environmental sector, such as the government, the private sector, or become an entrepreneur, have your own businesses. Now, information about new and renewable energy and energy conservation has to be included in the school or university curriculum. I cannot stress how many people are actually not aware of new and renewable energy, as well as global warming and its negative consequences of climate change. So I hope that in my very brief presentation, as well as keynote speech, I would actually love to talk for an hour, maybe even 2 hours or 3 hours about this issue, because there are actually a lot that needs to be discussed and that needs to be addressed. But since I am given a keynote speech, certainly there is a time limit that I have to abide by. And so let's stay connected. You can all connect with me on Instagram at Satyahangayuda. Feel free to DM me, direct message me your questions, your comments, or anything that you have any concerns about, with regards to my presentation or with regards to the energy and environmental sector. I'm more than happy to answer all of your questions, or you can connect with me in a professional manner on LinkedIn and at Satyahangayuda Widyaputra. Thank you again for listening to my brief presentation as well as keynote speech. I wish you all the best, and please understand that the future, not only for the energy sector, but the future of Indonesia is in your hands. We are experiencing a demographic dividend, where the majority of our population is from the age of 18 to 64 years old until 2035. We're experiencing it now from 2020 for the next 15 years. Now, in order for us to be able to take advantage of this bonus demographic dividend, is for us to be able to increase our human resource, to change our education system, to give working opportunities, and to be able to give opportunity for students to be able to pursue their master's or PhD degree abroad, and to increase the 4Qs, which consist of the intelligent quotient, the emotional quotient, the spiritual quotient, as well as the adaptability quotient. Now, I believe that each and every one of you have the capability as well as the potential to become the greatest versions of yourself, and just know and understand that you have a good future ahead of you, and know and understand that each and every one of you can make a change. With that being said, I would like to say thank you again, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Satya Hangayuda Widyaputra, for the insightful presentation. Now we will enter the Q&A session. I have received a question from the delegate of Kingdom of Norway. The question is to Mr. Satya Hangayuda Widyaputra. How would Indonesia reduce their dependence on oil and natural gas for a fast transition? And second question is, my apologies, how would Indonesia reduce their dependence on oil and natural gas for a fast transition to renewable energy? And what is Indonesia's stance on the future of fossil fuel availability? Mr. Satya Hangayuda Widyaputra, you may answer the question.
That a lot of people ask, particularly once it comes to people that are not highly involved in the energy sector and want to know more and want to be able to contribute, as well as want to ensure that we're able to switch to new and renewable energy. Well, first and foremost, if we look at the number of investors that are investing in Indonesia, as well as the number of investors that are interested, there is a gap. The investors are there, the funding is there, the potential is there. As I stated before, our total demand is from 65 to 70 gigawatts per year, but our capacity in renewable energy has far exceeded that at 450 gigawatt. But the percentage of renewable energy that gets used for electricity generation or transportation is still very small. Now, it comes not from the private sector, it comes from the Indonesian government, from both the executive as well as the legislative branch, which is currently one of the key priorities, is to be able to give a law as well as execute a presidential instruction to be able to increase the use of new and renewable energy, as well as ensure that these investors are given a set of rules, laws, regulations that can actually increase the penetration of renewable energy in our energy mix. Now, has the government been able to do that? And are they doing something about that? Absolutely. If we look at the legislative branch, right now, the law on new and renewable energy is being formulated, it is being discussed, and it has become one of the legislative's primary agenda. So one of their primary agenda is to ensure that we are able to sign as well as execute the discussion on new and renewable energy and execute it into law. And the president of Indonesia will soon, in the short term, be able to execute and implement a presidential instruction on new and renewable energy. And that will give investors the hope that they have all been longing for, the hope that they have all been waiting for. Now, in order for renewable energy to be able to lift off in Indonesia, is to ensure that not only is the law there, but we are able to reduce the price of electricity coming from new and renewable energy. Because one of the primary agenda from PLN is to purchase electricity at the lowest price. And as of today, the lowest price comes from coal, from oil, as well as natural gas. New and renewable energy is still more expensive. But with the upcoming rules, laws, and regulations that will be put in place from the legislative branch as well as the executive branch, it will certainly be able to reduce the price of new and renewable energy, give hope for investors, increase the number of new and renewable energy power plants that are coming online, as well as reach our targets from 2025 as well as 2050. And that in turn will help Indonesia in achieving its Paris Agreement. So right now, the law on new and renewable energy is still being discussed in the Indonesian government's legislative branch, whereas the presidential instruction is still being discussed on the ministry level in the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. Now, if we talk about what are some of the regulations as well as the policy that are right now put in place for rooftop solar, there are actually a lot. So a lot has been done and a lot has been executed when it comes to solar energy. So we see a lot of these rules, laws, regulations that are put in place, such as the ministerial instruction, the presidential instruction, once it comes to the use of new and renewable energy. But it all came in 2016, so it was very recent. It's been 4 years. But when we talk about law, it has yet to be enacted, but that will be enacted soon. And those are two different types of policies. One is law, and the other one is the presidential instruction that will be put in place in the foreseeable future to ensure that we're able to increase renewable energy as part of the energy mix. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Mr. Satya Hangga Yuda Widya Putra. To the delegate of Kingdom of Norway, I hope that answers your question. Moving on, there will be another keynote speaker joining us today. She is Ibu Sidroto Naim, PhD, MPA. For her background, Ibu Sidroto Naim, PhD, MPA is a national expert at UNFAO in Indonesia. I would like to remind all delegates that if you do have questions, please leave them in the chat box of the Zoom, and I will get to them later. Without further ado, to Ibu Sidroto Naim, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Can I get share screen permit? Because I cannot share my screen. Good morning, everyone. I think the talk from Pak Satya, very insightful, and I learned a lot about energy. Because actually, one of my fields is also about bioenergy. In terms of background, I'm a scientist by training. I did my PhD in microbiology, fisheries, and biotechnology at the University of Arizona and also Harvard Medical School. And at the time, I considered myself lucky because the John F. Kennedy School of Government was looking for a scientist to be in the cohort of public policy and public administration student. So I joined the cohort for 1 year for an MPA degree. And I think that's the only time very intense, 1.5 years. But I learned so much because as a scientist, I didn't learn, social sciences subject, also negotiation, persuasion. But at the Kennedy School, I feel myself maybe the most awkward student in the class because most students had background in political science, in economics, entrepreneur, arts. Science is very, very minority at the Kennedy School, but I survived. And as a biologist, I understand what does survival and thriving mean. And I think I'm also very optimistic, Pak Satya and also all of you, the youth, with the future of Indonesia. I think you can achieve more and even better than myself, because with all limitations that I had, I mean, like I went to, I think, one of the most, like a respected school in the world. And I'm thankful for that. For today, I will not talk in deep about biotechnology, but I want to share more from a philosophical and maybe also linguistic perspective. It takes time. Sorry. Can you see my screen? Because wait. Oh yeah. Let me check this one. So because Pak Satya already, talked about the big challenge, the grand strategy, and the umbrella or the macro level. So let me talk more about personal level. COVID, like the disease caused by the SARS-CoV-2, the virus, and it affects us, the humans. From a biological point of view, whether you are a virus, whether you are an animal, a plant, a human, we have these two main strategies in life to survive. Maybe you heard more about survival of the fittest, but actually that's not enough. To thrive is more important, like to grow well, to develop well and vigorously. Of course, if we see from the virus point of view, the SARS-CoV-2 had tried many times, to jump to humans. Before, they were only in bats or in pangolins or maybe in other animals. And I believe the one that jumped to human in 2019, that's like already the trial of, like maybe 100 generation, maybe 1,000 generation, because they found like human is more interesting. Why? Because they can find more humans than more bats, and it looks humans are also moving like with the mobility. This is also something that viruses love to do, like to move from one place to another place. But I think I read like many news media. One thing people forgot about virus, actually they don't want to kill us, because if they kill us, they died with us, because viruses, they are not living organism like bacteria. So I think in the future, one of the scenario, like from a virologist point of view, I think the SARS-CoV-2 will be milder compared to what we have now. And then, adapt to human, it is like living together and growing together. That's the best strategy for virus. If this virus, the SARS-CoV-2, amongst the most intelligent virus, I think they will be our friends instead of our enemies. And the second point I want to mention about this SARS-CoV-2 is like the larger umbrella of biotechnology innovation. In the US, we have like Silicon Valley, that's like for IT, like IT companies, and then Texas for energy, the topics Pak Satya already discussed, and Boston, Cambridge for biotechnology. We call Boston as the Mecca of biotech in the world, because we have Harvard Medical School, Harvard Life Sciences, the MIT bioengineering. So all innovation in the biotechnology, in the medicines, always come from Boston. I think in the world, more than 90%. If you have the opportunity to come to the Kendall Square, this is like the area where MIT is, you will find more than 500 biopharmacies company attached to this building, because they don't want to be left, like when MIT or Harvard already have innovation, the company will pick up right away. This is a kind of ecosystem, and I think in the future, Indonesia needs to have this kind of business ecosystem or innovation ecosystem. We have, like the startup, the big company, and then the government support with the regulation. We need the funding maybe from venture capital, and this is like your future. And we also need what we call, I think, in the future, health diplomacy. Maybe this is your roles, like energy diplomacy. It's like the geopolitics of energy, like already played important role in the last maybe 30 years. But in the future, we will have this new, like new space for all of you, the health diplomacy. You need to understand a little bit about biomedical issues, about health, this biotech related thing. And that's all my presentation about SARS-CoV because I want to talk more about us as humans. And the first word I want to discuss is connection. If we, like go into the root, the etymology, interestingly, in the past, connection means, like be united physically. So being connected physically is one of the important features. Of course, for now we cannot do even to shake our hand. We use this new, like in Bandung. This is I think PNS in Bandung. So they greet each other without touching the fingers or the hands. And actually connection means like to bind or tie, and this is like very strong, like very strong bind. Of course, even during the COVID, we feel the connection maybe via Zoom like this. But what does it mean to be connected via Zoom? Let's say this morning I am talking with you. Are we really connected? Because some of the life during this COVID era is like, I think it's an illusion. An illusion, of course, it means it doesn't real. But it helps. I mean, like the Zoom helps, but we need to give more meanings. Do we have like a real connection as humans, or this is something that we need to go deeper, to go more to show that we are human, because we don't want to like degrade or reduce the meaning of being human. And the third word is like about compassion or compassionate. This is also very interesting. I think many of you mentioned this many times, like I have passion, compassion, but don't forget, the root has a meaning of suffering and also pain. Maybe that's not that important in the modern use, but still, if you have some passion, maybe to be a diplomat, or maybe I don't know what is like your vision for the future, maybe to be a minister. There are many pains in doing like good things in the world, but it doesn't mean it is not important. We need to be like a good person. And this is I took from website LSPR last night. I tried to find one with students, but I couldn't find. Even during the COVID, we can do good for other people. Because I mentioned this COVID era is like partly illusion, but this is also real. If we can touch other people's life, your friend, your close one, especially maybe the one that you haven't connected for so long, for 6 months or 7 months, start to call them. Because how we leave a mark in one's life will define if in the next 5 or 10 years we want to remember what did I do during the COVID time. Did I connect to my friend? Did I make like a real connection, or if I just like let the time just wasted? Of course, that's not completely wasted, and that's why you all here. And I think that's also important, because COVID is not an illusion. It's real. It's like our enemy at this moment. But our life in the time of Corona is partly illusion, partly reality, partly experimental. And because it is experimental, it can be failed. But the whole experience is real. So just leave a mark. Don't be desperate too much, because this is our life. And if you watch, like Star Wars, it says like, may the force be with you, and never lose hope, have faith, and be compassionate, make a connection. Even though maybe even ourselves, even myself, I don't think any individual during this time never have this kind of feeling alone. I think that's all my presentation for today, because I just want to like to ask all of you to be like more caring, even about ourselves. Like be caring to yourself, be like mindful to others, and don't forget that we are humans. We need the connection. We need like the connection, the real connection, because feel is always real, even though via Zoom. But that's not enough. I think that's all, and I'm happy to answer if there is any question.
Thank you very much, Ibu Sidroto Naim. Now, we will enter the Q&A session. I've just received a question from one of the delegates, and the question is, Ibu Sidroto Naim, how's your prediction for the development of COVID-19 in 2021? To Ibu Sidroto Naim, you may answer the question.
Different from other countries, we will have a longer, what we call like peak. Like our peak is not that high, but it will stay longer, maybe until June 2021. And then we hope by that time we have vaccine, but this vaccine I think only contribute about 50% to our protection. And we still need to do all the protocols. And for the elimination, which means like enough people get infected and we have the vaccine, I think we have to wait until 2025, unfortunately, based on the characteristic of the virus and the way, because this virus like interrupt our interaction. I think for 2021 for Indonesia, we need to wait at least until June 2021, like for the virus to go down. And for the economic recovery, maybe we'll start in 2022. And for the virus itself to get eliminated or we can handle them, it will take until 2025, I think. So we need more innovators. If you want to be like an innovator in biotech, this is the time. Or maybe, like the health diplomacy I mentioned.
Thank you very much, Ibu Sidroto Naim, and to the delegate who asked that question. We hope that answers your question. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for the last speech, I would like to call upon Ms. Alia Nurayu Laksono. She is the special staff to the Minister of Youth and Sport of the Republic of Indonesia. To Ms. Alia Nurayu Laksono, the floor is yours.
Halo. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is having a great Friday, TGIF. I hope everyone is having a great week. I hope you are staying safe, practicing the various health protocols, and also exercising and doing your part to help others, those infected by the pandemic. My name is Alia Nurayu Laksono. I'm special staff with the Minister of Youth and Sports of the Republic of Indonesia. So this month, we are having our annual Youth Month atau Bulan Pemuda, which is our monthly event to commemorate Hari Sumpah Pemuda or Youth Pledge. And then this year, because of this whole pandemic situation, we decided to create a theme, and our theme is Bersatu dan Bangkit, Unite and Rise. And I feel like I want to explain to you guys as mahasiswa or students and young people, you need to know our theme for the Youth Pledge this year, so that you can take part in it, because this event does not belong to us, but it belongs to every single young person in Indonesia. So the theme this year, so for my opening speech, I basically just want to explain the theme Bersatu dan Bangkit and how it relates to the current pandemic situation that is happening, not just in Indonesia, but unfortunately it's happening worldwide. So with Bersatu and Bangkit, it basically means we have to unite and rise up against all the adversities, all of the challenges, mainly all of the challenges that we are facing this year with the pandemic. We need to continue to have a burning spirit to face all types of crisis. The young generation cannot be the generation that easily gives up, because out of all the other generations, we are the most able to adapt to any situations quickly, because we haven't been alive long enough to just sit down, to just like if we're older, like if our parents' generation or our grandparents' generation, it's a lot harder for them as older people to adapt quickly. But for us, because we haven't been alive long enough to get used to a lot of a certain way of life, so that makes it easier for us to adapt quickly, especially with how things are changing right now. So we also have to be smart in choosing our goals, and we have to also continue to have a hunger for knowledge, to have a hunger to improve our skills, especially our soft skills and our hard skills, because during this time, a lot of people, maybe some of your friends or some of your family members, have experienced getting laid off from your job or getting a pay decrease, and that results in maybe a possible career shift, or you have to think of something temporary such that you could provide for your family during this time. So that's what I mean by we have to continuously be hungry for knowledge, to improve ourselves, to invest in ourselves. This is like a really good time for you to learn something new, learn something more about yourself, improve yourself. So it is on our shoulders that the nation is able to progress, and it is in our hands that nation building will be continued. So whatever field that you guys decide to go into after you finish college, or whatever field that you guys are going into now, we can participate in nation building according to your own expertise. And we can participate according to our own expertise with helping we can also use our own expertise, not just to contribute to nation building, but also with regards to helping other people heal during this pandemic. Because something that I always say to people whenever I'm doing a webinar is you have to help other people during this pandemic. There are other people who has it worse than you. So, so use whatever expertise that you have to help those people. Helping other people doesn't always have to mean like a financial help, because I understand that not everybody can give money to other people, but you can help by improving your skills, by giving socializations, by giving like food or medical supplies, whatever you can give that others need. Well, please do that. You have a role. Like everyone here has their own role. Everyone here has their own platforms, has their own voices, has their own talents, has their own expertise. So use that to your advantage to help other people during this time, and then you also use that to help with the nation building. Yeah. During this time, what I realize with young people, especially like even just my friends, I see them creating a lot of various social movements in social media. A lot of my friends are creating like penggalangan dana, and then donating staple foods or like sembako and all of that during this time. So I think this theme of Bersatu dan Bangkit really pushes the young people to eliminate selfishness, but increase determination, work hand in hand, or gotong royong, which is like one of the core principles of being Indonesian. Unite and for the sake of nation building and to rebuild our country. So, yeah, I guess that's it. I think that's it for me. So basically what I'm just trying to say is the theme for this year's Hari Sumpah Pemuda or Youth Pledge Day. So we don't celebrate just on the 28th, but we celebrate the entire month of October with various events. The theme is Bersatu dan Bangkit, Unite and Rise. So I ask all of you for us to unite and rise. As young people, we play a vital role in rebuilding our country, in helping other people, in helping each other heal. We, as the young generation, we're super easy to get distracted. We have a lot of energy. We get distracted easily. We have a lot of dreams and goals and whatnot. So you channel all of that energy into helping other people and helping our country move forward past this pandemic. It is on your shoulders. It is on our hands. It is a big responsibility, but I am pretty sure that we can do it if we help each other, if we unite, if we do the whole gotong royong thing. So remember to practice all your social distancing, exercise well, eat healthy food, and wear your mask wherever you go. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello.
Thank you very much, Ms. Alia Nurayu Laksono. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, by that, I will be closing today's opening ceremony. First of all, I would like to say a huge thank you to all the speakers and to LSPR Communication and Business Institute and LSPR Youth Diplomacy Community. Not to mention the main sponsor for LSMUN 2020, ANT Production. Without them, this event would not be possible. Last but not least, thank you to LSPRTV as London School Model United Nations 2020 media partner. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a quick important information before I finish here. I would like to inform the delegates of WHO to stay in this room and the delegates of UNEP to move to the designated room that has been provided in the form of a link in the WhatsApp group. Again, I will repeat myself. Delegates of WHO to stay in this room and delegates of UNEP to move to the designated room that has been provided in the form of a link in the WhatsApp group. Thank you. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending today's opening ceremony. We hope you will have an amazing experience with London School Model United Nations 2020, and we wish you all the very best. Before I finish, I would like to remind all of you that during this difficult pandemic, always remember to wash your hands, wear your mask, and stay safe at all times. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and goodbye.